This is Georgia Raisman. I'm on Front Up today with one of my favorite people, a very highly opinionated Nat Lowell, which is why I like him, since I'm highly opinionated. Thank you for joining me,
Thank
Nat.
you, George, for calling me.
Nice to be here. We have two things to talk about today, 40B issues and town meeting within a town meeting.
Yep.
So let's talk about town meeting within a town meeting first. This is a novel approach to dealing with the popular issues. What's it all about? How is it happening?
We live in a state with a lot of old regulations and rules and bylaws that you don't know about, and all of a sudden someone finds out. And there is a way to get another town meeting by getting 200 signatures to have within a special town meeting. I'm calling it the super special.
That's super special. That's a good way of
super special. So that got done by, I believe, the proponent of the article, the first article, the
Nantucket Coastal
Conservancy. I believe they got the 200.
Wonderful name.
And then any article subsequent to that has to have 100 signatures, which is a pretty high threshold, you know, for the most part. So there's 3 articles. I believe that's it. I don't think anything else can happen.
So what's the goal of that town meeting within a town meeting in this case?
Well, I think what's happening right now, I mean, this isn't a secret. I mean, there's a lot of angry people on Nantucket right now. Most of them are people that I know and I care about and talk to, just like anybody else. And, you know, I guess it would be, it's symptomatic of the really good economy. Well, that's the thing. We're the only place in the country that complains about having too much good. Okay, it's true.
Yeah.
And so right now we've got a lot of things going on here where there's a lot of building and a lot of existing development rights being exercised, quite a bit. And
well, before we get on to 40B, existing development
it's
rights,
just. Part of it.
This particular article has to do with not allowing a town body, the select board in this case, to make a decision without a prior town meeting vote. And the decision relates to the lease of public land for private conservation purposes.
I mean, with that whole thing, I mean, I have to have an hour on this interview, so it won't really work. As Matt Fee rightfully said in his quote in the paper this week, basically what he said was it's hard to have a public hearing at town meeting. He didn't say public hearing, but that's what he was saying. And I've said that myself a bunch of times. It's very true. It's hard because you can't just go back and forth with different people speaking and then speaking again and consultants. It just doesn't work that way. Yeah. The SBPF issue, I mean, I look at this as, you know, we've had erosion for forever. It isn't new, okay? It's just that this is reaching it is reaching the pinnacle of Baxter Road infrastructure. It's going to go into the ocean. I mean, if we don't protect Baxter Road, just think of it as Hulbert Ave, for a comparison. Right. And if Hulbert Avenue had open surf hitting the beach, and those homes with all that infrastructure was just going to go away, we would have a different mindset than we would, say, in Mattocket. In those areas that have washed away, they've moved the roads, even though that isn't any less painful for the property owners. The town has to build infrastructure and provide access. This is not free. That beach below Baxter Road, I mean, I used to drive around the island in my truck. You can't do that anymore. People don't go to the beach down there.
No,
I mean, you don't. It's kind of like overstated in that area. Yeah. I'm more concerned with the Bluff Walk, keeping that.
Right.
And
which is used.
It's great. Used. It ends at 63 now.
Right.
And keeping the lighthouse protected. That's the way I look at that. Right. I don't look at this as giving away something. We're not really giving away anything. They're spending their own money.
Right.
We should be doing something offshore with breakwater stuff. That's really the answer to the Nantucket. It has been for years, but we just weren't ready to accept that. I think we kind of are now.
One of the things it does is in a way it's saying we don't trust the select board to make a decision in this regard. So how many other decisions are you going to take away from the select board, which in fact we elected, and say, well, we want popular opinion to rule
this is like saying, I don't like the fact that the select board can sell land.
Right. So
there has to be a town meeting vote to give them the authorization to work out the arrangement, but the town meeting doesn't actually make the sale. And I'm using that as an example. Right. I mean, I sort of look at town meeting isn't a public hearing. So to get enough information to make a decision at a meeting with 700 people or 500 people or whatever there is very, very difficult.
And frankly, you don't get that information. You get a body of people who are already interested and have decided based on whatever information they have decided to believe.
I mean, this is,
and they come to town meeting and are prepared to vote a certain way regardless of what they hear.
Sometimes it's timing. Sometimes it's a magic sentence that somebody says that all of a sudden changes people's minds.
That can be the case.
I mean, there's a lot of that.
There are some people who are undecided.
A bullet point that just all of a sudden happens.
Yeah.
But to get to the second article with the zoning, you know, which I support this and supported it for years, is this situation with the 40B, that land, and I don't mean to jump away from SBPF, but I know we're on limited time. We tried to change the zoning to 1 acre. It was 5 times, not 3. I thought it was 3.
This is on the Malcolm property.
Yes.
That now is subject to Surfside Crossing.
Just think of the Malcolm property as owned by Galacki's or the Birchells in the day, or Ralph Marble, or Miles's father, or something like that, just sitting there, hanging out. Donnie Holgate, just hanging out there, all owned by one.
The Coffins.
The Coffins. I brought that up the last interview, so I'm trying to think of somebody else, but you know what I mean. And it's just sitting there, contiguous, in the sewer district, on the outskirts of the Mid-Island, just by a stone throw, right next to the housing authority.
A perfect location.
This is like got a big blinking light.
Saying, buy me,
we're all just driving by and thinking it's just going to go away and be 2 acre. 2 acre is wrong for this area.
I think that's a point.
It's just wrong.
That's a point that has to be made. And what happens is people get up at town meeting and they say, "Oh, I bought here because it's 2 acre, and I love being 2 acre, and I don't want to." And everybody says, "Okay, 2 acre."
I had someone say to me the other day, Georgia, there's a first for me every week with something. Somebody called me up the other day, I'm not going to mention names, and was complaining that we got rid of his RC2. I have never had that happen.
Oh, gee.
RC2 was basically no zoning. Do whatever you want. Yet, the person actually said, well, I bought in it. And I'm like, I've never heard that said. That's scary.
Right.
So my point to you is zoning doesn't just stay the same forever. And if it did, it would be way worse than we have right now, because we had either RC or R1 or Lug 2, basically from this 1972 decision. We have tight zoning in Quidnet. It's R20. We have R20 in Hummock Pond. Like, we have R1 in Wallwinnet. I mean, there's some crazy zoning in places that are way out of town, yet this piece of property somehow had this... I just can't understand it. You've got to think beyond an initial reaction.
Yeah, and I think people didn't. I didn't understand the significance of going from R2 to R1 in that. I mean, I just didn't know.
Lug 2 to Lug 1.
I'm sorry.
It's actually R40, but that's okay. It's still 1 acre. It's just a little bit more ground cover, 10% instead of 7.
I think that was a huge issue.
And everybody
put it in those words. You're putting a blinking sign here saying, "Take me over for a 40B."
And
I can be bought much more easily with that zoning than if it were 1 acre zoning.
Yes, and we tried, but again, it's the perception. It's a heart-wrenching decision for a lot of people to make. Yeah. They are scared because they see trees and land, and and it's not a land bank type of purchase there. That's not the right thing there.
Why would the land bank not have been a good
because
purchase?
It's not oceanfront, doesn't have access to something. It's not contiguous to...
Let's talk about the land bank. It's a bank, right? It's a land bank.
Well, but the land bank has to...
So can't they do something with that land? Can't they take that bank and then sell it?
And do what with it?
What? Sell it to the...
No, that's not how they do it.
Lease it to the town? Well,
it's not in their bylaw. What should have happened, if you really want to know, I mean, you can be 20/20 with all this stuff.
Right.
The town should have bought it. Now, if there was an article at town meeting to write a check to the Malcolm family for $4 million, I'm not really sure how that would have went over.
Right.
We bought the electric company for 15, which was the best thing we ever did. Most of the land the town owns, they didn't even have to buy. It just, they already had it.
If the land bank bought it and sold it to the town?
No, I don't think that can happen under their bylaws. It's very tight, the state, the enabling legislation of the land bank. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I believe that could not happen. But they could have maybe swapped.
Or leased.
But this should have been bought by the town to hold it. And use the yard sale, we could have sold some, changed the zoning, get what we want. But that's really hindsight. If we change the zoning to 1 acre in 2014 or 2015 or even 2016, we probably would be seeing a nice sort of development with a covenant on one end of the lots and a primary on the other, and it would have been fine. But at the time, again, we were getting close to we're too busy. We weren't quite to the level we are right now, but 14 and 15, we were starting to get angry a little bit about how busy we are. You know, too much building. And that's a whole nother discussion, but that's the driving force behind, I think, overall, the community as at large, and social media has caused quite a bit of it too.
Oh, it sure can.
Oh my God, that's why I'll never be on it. I don't think I could sleep.
Yeah.
I get a lot of stuff forwarded to me and I just don't know what to say. But it's caused more misinformation instead of more information. That's the sad part. Now we're going to be having a public hearing on the article to change the zoning on the 27th. I'm kind of glad we're having it. We have to anyway.
Yeah.
But it'll be a good chance for people to sort of get educated, because that is a public hearing. That's the public hearing that you can learn something and maybe formulate a better opinion.
So when is that? Is that 4:30?
September 27th. No, I think it's at 12:30. It's in the paper.
Oh, okay.
See, I don't remember every single meeting at every single time in my head.
Yeah.
I have it written down at home. I think it's at 12:30 on the 27th. That's a Thursday.
That's going to be the public hearing on?
On just that article.
Right.
Because that's the only one that falls under the planning board purview.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we should. Yeah, I think we should. We have to get. I'll get that out on social media.
Whatever you want to do.
We have to.
Sure.
Yeah, because you're right. You cannot have a public hearing at the town meeting.
Town meeting.
The
only time it can happen is when there's a consultant like the sewer.
Yeah.
When Sarah sort of explains what we're doing, and there's people down front that we've never seen before that are speaking, that kind of thing. But as far as something like this, it just doesn't. It's hard.
Yeah.
You know. So I don't want to. I feel like I'm following up for my interview in July. I just want to say the passion that's coming out of whether it's the tipping point, group, or just in general.
Right.
I understand it. I don't agree with the level that we've gone. There's a process. A 40B is legal. They have every right to do this. We have every right to protest it. I want to see something far less than what they're proposing. I want to put this article puts a conscience on the owners. It makes them have to feel like town meeting is the biggest body we have. To vote in favor of the R40 zoning as a sort of like a detente. This is sort of like Reykjavik. We got Gorbachev and Reagan. We're going to figure out how to do something to make the other person blink. That's what this is about. And then maybe in April, because April's right around the corner, they're already working on the capital stuff right now for April town meeting, maybe there'll be a way to do something else with that zoning as a bigger piece to get them to sign something. Maybe they will. But that's what my hope is.
So I have misunderstood them.
Because the 40B, if they come in with, let's just say, 90 units, nobody's going to be in favor of that either.
Right.
This is way less than that.
Right.
This is like nothing. It's just like everybody else's zoning.
Right. So
you see what I mean? Across the street, and we've changed a lot of it to 1 acre now. I mean.
So what does the proposed zoning article in the special town meting say? What does it
R40,
say?
just lug to R40.
For where?
For those lots, 3, 5, 7, and 9, and I think it's 11. Whatever, the same lots. It's just boilerplate from all the other. It's exactly the same article we've had for 3 or 4 years.
And it can be done retroactively.
Yes.
Yeah.
Doesn't give them more options with a 40B. The 40B doesn't need
deal.
anything.
Yeah.
That could be R1 zoning and they could do the 40B.
Right.
Because they own all this land in one piece. That's
Right.
the part I'm trying to say. That I think that makes sense.
Right.
If this really, if you want my honest opinion, this should be R20. If it was R20, it'd all go away. But we can't do that. That's spot zoning. We don't have any R20 in that area.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be perfect as far as how much can get done in this area to be way less than the 40B proposal.
So what's the,
but that won't happen.
Since they already own it, what's the point of retroactively zoning it?
Well, before they spend any more money, I mean, they probably spent $300,000 to $500,000 just in.
At least
it's insane.
At least.
Like people don't realize what things cost now. You don't just hire consultants and get studies done and attorneys from Boston and all this stuff. This isn't free,
at least,
okay?
Yeah.
So they did get the land. I don't want to use the word cheap, but they got a pretty good deal. A little over $4 million is not bad for this, but because it was owned by one family that sort of had it for years, $4 million is a lot of money if you didn't buy it a year ago. Right. Okay. You understand what I mean?
And it was
That's what capital gains is all about. So this would, I mean, it's given them it's a negotiating tactic through the biggest body of town government.
What's the downside? What's going to be the downside?
Downside is they can still do whatever they want and still pursue it and come in with a different plan, which they've said they would do, and that's on record.
Yeah, they're going to do that anyway.
No, but
a minuet, right?
Right, but they could take a hiatus, ask for an extension from the ZBA. Let's say I'm just coming up with different things, and work on something. Go back to the drawing board a little bit, and maybe we could come up with something at the April town meeting to get rid of the state issue, get rid of the HOC, which is going to overturn an appeal likely, especially if they come in with something smaller. It's the guy that wrote that letter in the paper, Rich Nantucket. Well, that's true to some degree, but it's really more about just their overall case law. If you look at the rulings that they have, you'll see that they do it.
Go beyond that, no question.
We have to do something creative for Nantucket for this, or else we're going to be stuck with something we don't want. None of us want.
Well, I think, but you're right. What on earth could they possibly come up with that we will want? 96. We're not going to want 96. They're not going to come in with 50.
They could do it, but again, they don't have to. Under the 40B, they don't have to. There are other things that they could do under the workforce housing bylaw that we passed November 9th, 2015. There's 2 zoning districts that allow that. It's a planning board special permit. I call it a local 40B without any involvement with. That's what we've done at Richmond. Excuse me, that's what we did across from the high school for Ann Coospa. Everybody thinks that's a 40B. No, it isn't. No, it is not.
So there are ways of becoming friends with friends of Nantucket again.
There's a way, and that's this is my thing. If they live here. Right. If I had this much against me, I would have already had a heart attack. I couldn't have that.
Would it change anybody's attitude?
So people have to live with themselves. That's what this article is meant to be.
Would it change any Nantucketers' attitude towards the Sconset Beach Preservation Fund?
Well, that's a different question, because this could be this is the Posner special super special, because all 3 articles have something to do with Josh Posner.
Yeah, the guy that everybody loves to hate.
And I knew him long before this as just an acquaintance, and I haven't even spoken to him about any of this. This is all happening by just regular Nantucketers.
Well,
so I'm just hoping they have a conscience, and I'm hoping that they might be able to, put it in neutral. Just put the car in neutral for just a minute.
Take a deep
breath.
And
figure out maybe we can do something else if we could get sort of off the ceiling a little bit.
That would be great to see. Thank you, Nat.
Take care, Georgia. Nice to see you.